Hello, everybody. Welcome along to the Premier League check-in podcast. It's a forced smile, Matt. It's over. Feels like it's over to me. I know a lot of people in the comments have said, Ben, well, they ain't getting out of it, this bottom three. It's all done. But you almost wait for a significant week, don't you? And yet again, 3 defeats for the EFL teams, Ipswich, Leicester and Southampton. Wolves, we thought they were going to win at Southampton. And they did. I hosted Blue Monday from an Ipswich point of view, if you're not aware of that, on the Benjamin Bloom, or if we clipped on Matt SB channel. And I almost felt at peace with it. But Matt, are you with me? It's done now, isn't it? I think if I'm a CEO, a bean counter, if I'm making lists of players and prepping contracts, you're prepping for the EFL if you're in the bottom three at the moment, aren't you?
You are, yes, you are indeed. For anyone that watched the Premier League check-in last week, it was kind of, we were all expecting the inevitable to happen this weekend, and it has happened. It's like buying a ticket to the cinema for a horror movie, and then, the scare comes, and it did come, and it's horrible now, Ben. The gap is just growing continuously. We look at it now, 9 points. It could get to double digits next weekend after the international break. It's horrible. Southampton, we've said they're done for a while, but for Ipswich and Leicester, there was always that bit of hope because of Wolves' poor start to the season. But Wolves have started to correct themselves, and it's just desperate. I mean, obviously, on top of that, Ipswich and Leicester's form has really dried up. I mean, Ipswich haven't won in 2025, have they, in the league?
I think they're the only team in the 92 haven't, mate.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, obviously, we can say, the chasms, but at the same time, you're not making it close anymore as well. So it is a bit of both.
They've lost at home to Southampton in that time, Matt, to
exactly.
add context to it, yeah.
Well, it was the killer. We said that, a few weeks ago when that result came around. I know at the time the gap was probably only 3 or 4 points from Wolves, but we said this was the game you had to win, and you didn't. And, paying the price for it now.
Can you do a little compare and contrast for me from last season? Because a lot of people said, and I think I probably agree, most boring Premier League relegation in history. It was terrible. The EFL teams were miles and miles away. By the way, can I just make this very clear? We're not having a pop at the EFL teams. We're just pointing out the chasm. And if it's not entertaining, I'm an Ipswich fan, for God's sake. I know how difficult it is. And I also agree with Matt. Ipswich could have done a much better job of it. Could have done a better job of it. But compare and contrast for me last season, Matt. And let me add the points deductions on so we can judge it just on what happened on the pitch. So it was a 6-point gap from Luton to Forest, but Forest got deducted 4 points. So they would have been, that would have been a 10-point gap. Everton also got deducted 8 points, didn't they? So then you would have been above the bottom three. You would have had Luton 26, say Forest 36, Brentford 39, and then you're going up to like 46 for Wolves if you're giving Everton 48. It looks like it in terms of pure numbers, Matt. This is going to be worse. And we've said for a while now, it's only Wolves being utterly terrible and not just bad that's made it even closer. Is this worse than last year?
It might be the worst of all time, Ben. I'm not just saying that to be dramatic, but we're in the March international break and we're almost at a point where we've got no hope. And we are quite optimistic people, myself and Ben. We'll try and cling on to something if we see it's there, but the gap's only growing, Ben. It's not like it's going the other way. Last season, I'll admit, I thought the bottom three probably would go down. If you go back to the international break at this time last year, it looks like they'll go down. But there was always a bit of fight with Luton. And obviously you throw into the mix a Forest points deduction, and Everton had one as well. So that did sort of, that's it. They sort of narrowed the gap a little bit. I think Luton, as you say, ended the season on 26 points. Ipswich are on 17 with 9 to go. So we're talking Ipswich getting 9 from the final 9.
Well, that's a point per game, which is the survival, get you 38 points. And, mate, I love Ipswich. Ipswich aren't getting 9 points from the last 9 games. That's 3 wins.
It's difficult to see it, isn't it? And don't get me wrong, Ipswich have shown great signs at points in this season when they beat Chelsea, when they beat Tottenham. But this run of form now, coupled with the fact that you lost I don't want to call it a banker, but the most favourable fixture you could ask for, Southampton at home, is so bleak, and you really could see Ipswich and Leicester flatlining for the rest of the season. And I don't want to say that because I quite like Ipswich, and obviously Ben's an Ipswich fan, but that could be the truth here, where they both genuinely finish on 20
It's so
points.
hard, Matt, it's so hard for the players. The psychology of it when you're, and I know we can bring up that when we get the figures. And by the way, please, anybody, don't post comments on my YouTube channel telling me what the financials are when they don't get released for another 12 months or whatever until the end of kind of next season. You don't know what they are, but we're probably going to assume, I mean, these three will have the lowest wage bills. I know there's been a fair bit of spend from Ipswich and quite a bit from Southampton. I don't think Leicester in terms of the net spend, but they had the kind of FFP issues as well, didn't they? Do you think, Matt, if Wolves had what's the manager called, Pereira, all season, and Cunha hadn't been suspended a couple of times, they're a mid-table team, aren't they?
Well, they'd probably at least be up with West Ham and Everton in the 34 points zone, which would mean we'd have a 17-point gap, Ben. And at that point, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because Wolves are slowly catching up to those teams. So we might have that kind of gap come the end of the season, which is, I mean, a massive chasm. We speak about in previous seasons, that Luton were 6 points short. This team was 7 points short. 17 points, Ben. I mean, it's not even close. It's ridiculous, the gulf in class there. Obviously, Southampton, as I say, I mean, we've thought they're down for a while. Leicester, I mean, the thing is as well, Ben, with Leicester, they didn't even get the points deduction, which we thought could cost them this season. They didn't even get that, and they're still miles away. I've touched on it a few times with Leicester. I feel like I'm repeating myself. They genuinely just did grind out more results with Steve Cooper. Yes, it might not have been pretty football, but they had a fighter's chance. With Ruud van Nistelrooy, there's nothing to really get behind and say, this is why they might stay up. This is a bit of fight. I mean, I watched the game against Manchester United on Sunday night, Ben, and the only time Leicester showed any fight was in the last 5 minutes when the game was 3-0. So, and that was an opportunity as well. Man United are not having a great season, so you've got to try and seize upon those opportunities, and they didn't. The same with Ipswich when they played Man United.
45 minutes against 10 men and just froze, didn't they? Bless them.
Yeah, exactly. And you equalised just before half time as well. You're thinking, Ipswich have the momentum maybe to at least get a draw, possibly snatch it. So, if you don't take those opportunities, you're not going to do it. And we're going to be sat here potentially for the next 9 weeks, Ben, repeating ourselves, unfortunately. I really hope there's something in this next couple of games for Ipswich or Leicester where they can win one of the next two or something and just try and make things look a bit more respectful and maybe give us a little bit of belief, but I'm not sure if I see it, if I'm being honest.
There's two more things I kind of want to talk about, Matt. So don't let me go too tangential here. I want to get your take on the three managers, Juric and Van Nistelrooy and McKenna, and the possibility of all three of them not being at the clubs in summer or all three of them being there. I need to process that, and I feel like discussing with you would be helpful. I do want to raise here, Matt, because I get people defending their clubs. I really get it. But when we've discussed this before, we get a lot of comments saying, what about this? What about that? We've lavished praise on Forest. We understand. And look, Forest just were light years, universes ahead of Ipswich at the weekend, having beaten them for the third time this season. We are right, though, guys, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. If you support Fulham or Brentford or Brighton or Forest, who we love what they've done, I'm sorry if you feel uncomfortable me saying it, but it is now 4 seasons. Next season, it'll be the same 17 with the kind of clubs bouncing about down the bottom. And yes, well done, Forest. Well done, Fulham. Brentford and Bournemouth is now, how many years ago, Matt? Like probably 5-6 years for Brighton.
Brentford,
sorry.
Yeah, Brentford's 2021 and Brighton's 2018, I think. Sorry.
Yeah, let's disregard Brighton because they've been up so long now. But I think the thing that I want to impress on people is the more this happens, the more it exacerbates the problem. doesn't it? Because we always count them up in transfer windows that clubs have with 100 million TV money as opposed to 45 or 32 or 15 parachute money, or like 9, or I don't know, if you're Leeds and you've got brilliant TV magnetism, you're going to make a bit more in commercials. But this is not good, is it, Matt? The drawbridge coming up, and I hope the fans, Matt, of Brighton and Bournemouth and Brentford and Forest and Fulham can understand, and more power to them because they've run in the castle while the drawbridge is going up. But I hope they understand why the likes of you and I, as an Ipswich fan who's gone up, and you're a Coventry fan, you want to be in that Premier League and you want to play Liverpool and whoever and Man United and Arsenal. But sorry, big long rant. Can you understand what I'm trying to say to the fans of the teams that have just, like Indiana Jones running under the thing and pulling his hat in afterwards? I'll stop talking, Matt. You're a great YouTuber and I'm not letting you say anything.
No. I like your analogies, Ben. With those teams,
They're ridiculous, aren't they?
they're brilliant, Ben. They're brilliant. We get some comments, Ben, from some people saying, "Well, we did it," and they are frustrating, those comments. I'd like to think most Nottingham Forest fans realised that they had to break the rules, kind of, to get out of the position they're in, to stay in the Premier League. And I'm not saying, it's disgraceful. If that's how you have to do it and you survive after the points deduction, then do it. I like Forest. Yeah, exactly. Look at where they are now. And with teams like Brentford, Bournemouth, we've spoken about years of building in the Championship. It's taken a few near misses particularly for Brentford in the playoffs. For Ipswich, it didn't happen like that. It was an incredible 2 promotions in a row, and they didn't really have the time to prep. I'm not saying that it's a disaster having back-to-back promotions, but
it's kind of the same for Forest, wasn't it? With the the loan players. Can I just quickly make a point, Matt? We're getting a lot of comments saying that Ipswich have spent similar amounts to Forest did in their first season. Like that disproves what we're saying. It proves exactly what we're saying because it doesn't bloody work like 3 years later or whatever now.
Exactly. And the problem is now that we've got the same 17 teams keep surviving, it's created a bottleneck so that the 3 come up next season. And, by the way, in my opinion, I think Leeds are probably going to come up and be the strongest team. And as you've said, there's a lot of draws to them with the fan base, and they can make Ellen Road a fortress if they want. But you still can imagine that bottom 3 being the 3 that have come up and Leeds being in there with them. And you need a disaster season at Wolves where they just flatline for the whole season. And we've had Wolves have a poor start to the season, but they've escaped with the resurgence they've had now. And
Wolves are a relegation team. Look at them; they've got less than a point per game. They should be a relegation team, not 9 points clear.
Exactly. I think this is the new standard, though, Ben. I think I remember a couple of years ago, I did videos on the relegation battle saying, it's not 40 points to survive anymore. It's probably about 35. It's dropped even lower now. We're talking 30, maybe 25 in the future. And I'm not even being pedantic and dramatic. That is maybe where we're at. If Wolves genuinely lose all their games, Ben, and they just finish on 26, they probably still survive because Ipswich and Leicester need to churn out a point per game.
Remember, Ipswich would be beating them, though, in that scenario. Give me that 3
that's
points.
True. Yeah, that's true.
I'm being very pedantic with that comment, though, man.
No, but that's the only thing I think we've got that's a potential wild card, but it's a small one. It's not a massive one. A little grenade that Ipswich can detonate to make it interesting. If Ipswich win that game, I know we've spoken about coming into that game with Ipswich v Wolves. Where is it, Ben? 5th of April, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's a midweek. They go to Bournemouth, which is a horrible game now, isn't it? And then, Mr. Cunha, we still don't know whether he's scoring a hat-trick in that game or he's still going to be suspended.
It's the only thing. That is last chance saloon, and it has to be a win. I don't fancy your chances necessarily at Bournemouth, but if you can win the Wolves game and Wolves don't win before that, 6 points. The problem is as well, Ben, the goal difference is almost like an extra point as well, isn't it, down there? So, but maybe if you win the Wolves game, it gives you a bit of belief to go and win another one after that, and then we can talk. But I think we're looking at a pretty cut adrift bottom 3 right now, which is probably going to stay the same.
Yeah, well said. There's a great guy in our Blue Monday Telegram group, good data guy, Chris, who tells me with great certainty teams don't get relegated on goal difference. It just doesn't happen anymore. It'd be typical if it would be the one, but there you go.
Sorry, quick question, by the way. What is worse for yourself as a fan living this? Going down miles away from the bottom three, or if you clawed it back but then went down on goal difference, would that be more excruciating?
No, I'd be prouder if we clawed it back. I just think there's a sense with probably Ipswich and the Leicester fans and Southampton fans can tell us that it's hard. There's a chasm. You're at a disadvantage. All those things are true, but you just want to give it the best shot you can. And like we've said loads of times about speaking just specifically about Ipswich, like all the head-to-heads, they haven't won games. And I mean, I get a bit annoyed because it's like the mainstream media, they don't have a lot to talk about. Neither do we, although we're having a fairly impassioned chat about it. So what they're going with, Matt, now is, Ipswich and Leicester, they're pathetic. They're awful. They're dreadful. And you're like, well, yeah, the points total is awful and pathetic and dreadful. But you kind of want to say, okay, lay me out how they get 35 points. Go on. Explain to me how you would have done that. Oh, well, I would have signed a load of players. They would have all worked out. Nobody else would have wanted to sign them. I wouldn't have breached FFP. They'd have won all the tight games. No bad decisions would have gone against them. They'd have got no injuries. And there's your 10 wins. And it's like, okay, mate, nice one. Anyway, I'm getting very vexatious today.
No, but you're right, Ben. If the three that come up from the Championship this year all finish in the bottom three next year, will they be saying the same thing? No, then they're not good enough. Or will they actually
managers will get fired for that as well?
Yeah, exactly. Or is it time we changed our perspective? Not us necessarily, but the people at the top, and think, hang on a minute, this is broken. There's a bottleneck here. And I'm not saying that. Yeah, you can't blame the teams that are in that 17 that keep surviving. And as I say, the methods they've taken to get to where they are now. But the difficulty is, Ben, one of the comments I saw on one of these videos was, all right, well, what's your solution? Well, I don't know, but is it for me to give a solution? Do we just keep going with something that's broken because I can't find a solution? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I totally agree with you. I mean, I've ranted long and hard. The solution is that the distribution is uneven, and we get that Manchester United should make more money from TV revenue than Ipswich should, and that Leeds should make more than Preston should. We get it, but I think Gary Neville said it quite well. Promotion should give you an opportunity. And you know that these clubs that have, these great clubs, the elite ones, they deserve decades of excellence. They deserve to be up there. Promotion should give you an opportunity, and relegation should not be horror, ticking 3-year parachute payment clock where it's like financial Armageddon if you don't get it right in those 2 years. Relegation should be, you weren't good enough, have another go, come back stronger if you deserve to get back up. But at the moment, the system we have, and again, I'm not proposing the solution, I'm explaining that the system we have is relegation is utter disaster, isn't it? And we're almost getting, the trading is affected so badly where players don't want to come to newly promoted teams, Matt. They're losing every week. So, they're going to be far more likely, that the market is far more likely to go to the 17. And I just think a fairer distribution would help, but it ain't going to happen whilst you've got Premier League and EFL as different bodies, because it's turkeys voting for Christmas. It's like if I'm a Forest or Bournemouth or Fulham, the three we always say, why in my right mind are going to say I've managed to do the impossible and establish myself? Right, now what we need to do is make it fairer for everyone else to do that, and more likely that we get relegated. It's like, why would you say that? So, yeah. Premier League 2 is where I'd normally go, but then it's just, you're just moving the chasm down, aren't you? But
yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, you can't. I don't know. I'm trying to work out if it'd make any difference changing the number of teams that got relegated. I don't know if it would, because we'd still have that. Say if it was 2 go down, the one that just survived would be down there
just
again.
Get the 4 bouncing or 2 bouncing, wouldn't you? Yeah.
You're
saying leave more up so they have more of a chance of establishing themselves. But
And
yeah,
then
you're
it's
right.
more difficult to get promoted, isn't it? And
Well,
if anything, that's more of a bottleneck, isn't it?
yeah, the chasm just applies to fewer teams then, or more teams, whichever way you move it, doesn't it? But yeah, if you've got suggestions of how to fix English football, just really, really quickly, do we see all of Juric, Van Nistelrooy and McKenna in August starting at their clubs, or would I think Southampton or Leicester, it would be a sacking if they decided it wasn't working and they would, go and find Mr. whoever who's got promotions on his TV. And I do still think there's the chance if an elite club took the manager from Brentford, Bournemouth, or whoever, Palace, that they might take McKenna from Ipswich. So what are you feeling about August and the three managers?
If I was to give a quick answer, are they going to be there? McKenna, yes. Van Nistelrooy, no. Juric, no, is where I'd go. Because I think, obviously McKenna, the big thing for Ipswich is, can you hold on to McKenna? Because the best thing is there's a realistic view of how this season's gone, and it's not that everyone's turned on McKenna and said, "Oh, it's his fault."
His stock is lower though. His stock was ridiculously high after the double promotion, wasn't it?
Exactly. You stick with McKenna as long as he's not drawn elsewhere. I think you're good to go next season. Leicester's a difficult one. They've changed their managers a few times, and I wonder if, similar with Southampton, they brought in a manager who. Were they thinking these managers could keep them up? I mean, Leicester probably thought that with Van Nistelrooy. Not sure with Southampton and Juric. So maybe Southampton think Juric is a long-term option. But even then, I just think it's difficult to see these managers sticking around to then move on to the Championship after such a terrible losing run. I don't see it. I think Van Nistelrooy won't want to go to the Championship.
My understanding, Matt, is that Burnley wanted Van Nistelrooy and he wanted a Premier League gig.
Yeah. I think Van Nistelrooy won't go down to the Championship. And for Juric, I just don't know. I mean, I know they brought him in and replaced Russell Martin, but that to me was like, he's going to try and keep us up, because if you think you're going down already, you might as well stick with Russ Martin, who did bring you up last time. So it was like they brought in Juric to try and save them. He's not going to do that. I think both Leicester and Southampton might change, but I think Ipswich will hold on to McKenna.
It's an interesting debate, isn't it? So get involved in the comments. You're going to need to sharpen your pencils today. First of all, you need to fix English football. Talk to us about chasm. And we do have the utmost respect when we're talking about Bournemouth and Fulham and Forest. You just sometimes have to look outside of the prism of your own club and look at the health of, not necessarily the whole 92, but at least that top 44 or 68 or whatever it would be that are going to have some proximity to Championship promotion or Premier League relegation. Also, it's an interesting one about the managers, isn't it? Will they or won't they be there? But there you go. I think I might need to take a walk with Arlo the dog or something. I'm really vexed now, Matt. I really enjoyed doing the League One predictions with you, which is probably a good time to plug the excellent Matt S. Which way do I go? I'm mirrored. Matt SB channel.
That's me. Yes, do check out the Matt SB channel. Although it's the international break, still got lots of videos going out, including today, League One predictions, because League One does carry on. Premier League videos will return next week as well with Sophie. So do check it out on the Matt SB channel. And thank you once again for your support on the Premier League check-in.
Brilliant. I'm off to go and blow into a paper bag and stop hyperventilating, and we'll see you all next week with the it's one more international break week, and then we've got a midweek round, so we'll fathom some way of coming, but maybe we'll do some running predictions or whatnot if there's anything to talk about left in the Premier League. Race for Europe, Matt. I'm up for it if you are. Thank you everybody for watching the Premier League Check-In podcast.